Emily Dickinson was born on December 10th, 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts to Emily Norcross and Edward Dickinson. Emily's family was not wealthy but was a prominent family in Amherst. Her father, Edward Dickinson, was a lawyer and trustee of Amherst College. Amherst was a small village which was based on religion and the college. Although Emily was a brilliant young lady, she went to college for a very short time. She attended Mount Holyoke Female Seminary for a year but could not handle being away from her family because of her fragile health. She never married and lived with her parents. Emily spent most of her time riding, walking her dog, and reading. There was not much to do in Amherst. Even though Amherst was a religious village, Emily herself was not religious. Emily's love for writing showed at an early age. Although it's unknown how many poems she wrote when she was young, there are only 5 poems that can be dated before 1858. These 5 poems were sent to friends in letters and valentines. Although Emily Dickinson wrote many poems, a few of her best were I Taste Liquor, Never Brewed, Wild Nights, and I Felt a Funeral in My Brain. Emily was the second of 3 children, an older brother, Austin, and a younger sister, Lavina. They were a tight-knit family. Her brother, Austin, followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a lawyer. He brought a 6th member of his tight-knit family when she married Susan Gilbert. Susan was a schoolmate of Emily's. When they married, they moved beside the family, which delighted Emily at first. She thought that she would have someone to spend time with and share things. She became very close to Susan in the beginning, but later grew apart, calling her a pseudo-sister. Emily never left her house much and refused to see most people that would visit. She did take a trip to Philadelphia and Washington once and made trips to Boston to see a doctor about her vision. Emily had a couple of poems to be published by her friend Samuel Bones, but was not given credit for the writings. He edited the poems to make them flow and easier to read and comprehend. She only had 7 published during her lifetime. Emily eventually turned to a literary critic in 1862 by the name of Thomas Wentworth Dickinson for advice. She considered him one of the most safest friends. Although they remained friends for the rest of her life, they only met face to face twice. In her years of emotional crisis, which were between 1858 and 1866, she wrote more than 1,100 poems. The subjects of her poems were of love, death, hate, and separation. When she wrote My Life Closed Twice Before It Closed, one can only assume she was writing about Benjamin Newton, her dear friend, a young man who worked for her father's law office. Benjamin came from a family that was by her father too poor to marry. It was believed that Emily had a romantic relationship with Benjamin. There was also a gentleman that she seemed to have feelings for by the name of Judge Otis Lord, which some believe they had a romantic relationship, but it was never confirmed by Emily or Judge Lord. In her later years, Emily wrote fewer than 50 poems. Some say this could have been from her failing health and her taking on more responsibility in running the household. A year after her father's death, her mother had a stroke that left her disabled until her death. These turns of events put everything on Emily, which could be the reason she had a nervous breakdown in 1884. After the breakdown, her health failed noticeably and she passed away on May 15, 1886. Emily was one of the greatest poets of the English language. She has her own style way beyond her time that was never known until after her death. She had wisdom and vision beyond her time.